Curious Georgie, Apple Harvest. It was harvest time, and Mr. Rankins needed help picking his apples. Georgie and his friends, the man with the yellow hat, were happy to lend a hand. Or food. Mr. Rankin explained that they needed to collect every apple. I'm going to join the Mrs. Round back, he said. Once you fill that cart, you can unload it into the washing tub. Mr. Rankin took his careful cart full of apples to the barn and dumped them in the water. It must be their boat time, Georgie thought. Georgie climbed up the branches, collected the shiny red apples in his friend's hat, and put them into the cart. What fun! High up in the tree, he now saw Jumpy Squirrel picking apples too. Georgie decided to help. He took Jumpy's apple and tossed it into the cart with the nest of Mr. Rankin's apples, but Jumpy wanted that apple for himself. He leaped in to take it back, and Georgie tried to stop him. Easy now, Georgie. That lever released all of the apples, said his friend. Georgie looked at the lever. He thought it was an excellent way to get Jumpy out of the cart. Georgie, no! Georgie pulled the lever and Jumpy tumbled out along with all the apples. That's okay, said his friends with a sigh. We can gather them up again. But Jumpy had found his apple, and he ran to hide it in the barn. Georgie decided to follow. Georgie looked around the inside of the barn in wonder. There were all sorts of things to climb and on the swing from. It must be some kind of monkey playground. But Georgie was not here to play. He had to get the apple from Jumpy. It weren't so dark in the barn. He found the light switch and flipped it. Everything moved. It was a machine, not a playground. Georgie wondered how it worked. He watched the bucket scoop up the apple. He decided they must carry the apples high away from Squirrel. But wait, where was Jumpy? There he was. Jumpy still had the apple he took from the cart. Georgie chased Jumpy, grabbed the apple, and threw it into a bin high out of reach. Suddenly, the machine stopped. Georgie found a button and pushed it. The machine started again. This time, all of the parts started working, including a moving belt. But when he looked up, he saw all of the Rankin's beautiful apple being chopped to bits. The chopped up apples dropped into a giant barrel, and the lid was lowered tightly on top of them. Too tightly, liquid began to pour out of the barrel. What a mess! Georgie had an idea. He ran up and put his mouth under the liquid. It tasted good, a lot like apples, but there was too much of it. Luckily, he saw some empty containers. Georgie scrambled to put the containers on the moving belt fast enough to catch the liquid. Then he looked down at the end of the belt and saw the container fall onto the floor. Oh no! Oh! Georgie ran to catch them. Then he needed to stop the machine. Soon he had filled all of the containers, but the golden liquid continued to pour out. He looked around for another container and saw a big pair of rubber boots. As the last boot was filled, the liquid stopped pouring out, and the machine stopped. Phew! The farmers and George's friends appeared in the doorway. Will be, Mr. Rankins exclaimed. Georgie froze. The Rankins would surely be upset that he ruined all of their apple. Georgie! Mr. Rankins rushed up to him. You've done a fantastic job. All that cider already pressed and bottled? Thank you. This is some machine, said the man with the yellow hat. See, the apples are washed here, Mr. Rankins explained. Then they are lifted up to the chopper, because chopped apples give more juice. The juice is pressed out of the apples, and they then bottled. Georgie had not ruined the apple after all. He turned them into cider. Mr. Rankins handed an apple to George. Cheers, you'll earn it, he said. Georgie knew someone who wanted the apple more than he did. He'd had enough apples for one day. The end.